This is the morning after the night before, where the President delivered his State of the Nation address last night here in Cape Town. And today we have one of those New Age business briefings, the latest in the series, and we'll be unpacking that speech with the President. And you at home will have an opportunity to pose your questions live, hashtag TNA BizBrief at Morning Live SABC, and we'll pose those questions through to the President, and you'll get a live response. And just before you joined us, we had been hearing from the partners of this particular breakfast, the New Age and the SABC. But this breakfast is sponsored by Transnet. And we are very privileged to have with us today the Minister of Public Enterprises, who's going to join us on stage just to say a few words ahead of the broadcast. So as we welcome the Minister here, don't forget, hashtag TNA BizBrief at Morning Live SABC. That's where you can tweet your messages.
His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, the Honourable Jacob Zuma, honourable colleagues in Cabinet, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, chairpersons of boards, especially Transnet Board, Ms. Linda Mabaso, Group Chief Executive of Transnet, and other Chief Executives of state-owned companies and Chapter 9 institutions, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another briefing session hosted by Transnet in partnership with the New Age and the SABC. We start, Mr. President, by warmly congratulating you on last night's reassuring and inspiring address. The issues you raised, economic development, growth, transformation, are all leads to radical economic transformation, and they are vitally important to ensure that we achieve our collective goals. Mr. President, all of us are traveling on this journey together. It is a long and arduous journey, but with the wisdom and guidance of our people, we will get there. As one of the drivers of this public platform to encourage vigorous debate and discussion, we are proud that Transnet plays such a vital and critical role in ensuring that our economic and social goals are achieved. As some of you may know, Transnet is South Africa's state-owned freight transport and logistics infrastructure company. As such, it is the custodian of the country's rail, ports, and pipeline networks. In line with the groundbreaking market demand strategy, Transnet maintained its commitment to the modernization and renewal of South Africa's transport and logistics infrastructure, spending 29.6 billion rand during the last financial year. Transnet's total spend since the launch of the MDS is an unprecedented 124 billion rand in our country's rail, ports, and pipeline infrastructure. As we modernize our country's infrastructure, Transnet is also embarking on a journey of innovation, placing research and development at the epicenter of all that it does. We hope that as a state-owned company, with a mandate both to provide world-class infrastructure and technologies, as well as be at the forefront of driving South Africa's developmental objectives, Transnet can play a role in bringing the hopes of our country to fruition. This is the right moment for me to therefore say that this forum provides an ideal opportunity for unpacking and interrogating our President's address. Thank you once again for giving us this unique opportunity to engage. I now hand over to the President of the Republic of South Africa, the Honourable Jacob Zuma. Thank you.
Minister Lynn Brown, thank you very much indeed. In fact, we're going to take a quick commercial break so that we can We can, oh, okay, all right. So apparently it's all happening. Whilst this stage gets cleared, in fact, let's take a quick commercial break so that we can clear the stage properly and then we can welcome the President. So you at home, the next time you see us, we will have the President up on stage.
Gift of the Giver says it wants to resolve the issue diplomatically and amicably so. It still believes it could be a case of mistaken identity.
OPEC members Nigeria and Libya, both suffering setbacks in production, were given exemptions.
In 2016, the airline was voted the leading airline in Africa by passengers in the World Travel Awards. Currently transports more than 160 tons of cargo.
She won the Sun International Ladies Challenge, the Supersport Ladies Challenge and the 2016 Chase to the Investec Cup for Ladies Final.
Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
This Ford Cougar thing is becoming a hot potato for them, excuse the pun.
US carmaker Ford has finally admitted that a fault is causing some of its Ford Cougar SUVs to catch fire, and it also formally issued a recall in South Africa.
Ford needs to take accountability.
We'll work with our dealers and try to come up with a way that satisfies them.
Britain will leave the EU single market when it exits the European Union. That's the word from Prime Minister Theresa May.
I know there are some voices calling for a punitive deal that punishes Britain and discourages other countries from taking the same path.
She has said leave the single market, then at the same time says she wants to have access to the single market. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go down.
The Security Council received a firm rebuke from Israel's envoy, who labelled the Council's action as inspiration for terror.
Ambassador Danon expressed hopes that the appointment of a new Secretary General would usher in a wind of change towards Israel at the world body, while he boldly declared hope in the new American president.
Africans are coming up with innovative tech solutions to solve their challenges.
We developed mobile apps that gamify the learning.
On Network, we have information about Africa's technology and social media landscape.
First rate, I think there was less than maybe 2,000 visitors, and now this year we're expecting around 35,000 visitors.
We also tell you about apps celebrities are using.
My favorite piece of technology right now, I would say it's M-Pesa.
That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
A very good morning. If you've just joined us, very warm welcome to this, the latest in the series of New Age Business Briefings brought to you by the SABC, and today very kindly sponsored by Transnet. And so many of you would have been watching television last night, and you would have seen His Excellency President Jacob Zuma delivered the State of the Nation address. Well, we have him again today, and this time you have an opportunity as citizens to pose questions on hashtag TNABizBrief at Morning Live SABC, if there's anything that you'd like him to unpack a little further about his message yesterday. Now, for those of you who perhaps don't know and are watching from other parts of the continent, the State of the Nation Address is an annual event, and this gives an opportunity for the President to give us, a look at the state of the nation, and it usually marks the beginning of the parliamentary year. Now, this year, the theme for the State of the Nation address was the year of Oliver Reginald Tambo, Unity in Action, Together Moving South Africa Forward. So let's unpack that theme. Let's unpack the messages that came through from the President as he joins us now. Your Excellency, Mr. President, always a pleasure to have you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much to be with you this morning.
So, yesterday was, I think, your fourth SONA after getting re-elected in 2014, number 9 overall, and they don't get easier, do they?
Yes,
so, what was your key messages yesterday? What did you want the nation to hear?
Well, as you know, the State of the Nation address, government gets an opportunity to report back to the nation as to what the government has been doing over the year, particularly following what we had said we're going to do, that we committed ourselves to do in the last year. And therefore, as you know, there are few challenges. I mean, there are many challenges, but there are few that are very fundamental. Firstly, we would want to see South Africa reconcile, unite, working together. And we have felt that since one of our very illustrious leader, President Oliver Reginald Tambo, would be completing 100 years this year, it was important to look at him with a view to use his kind of ideas as well as the values he stood for to bring cohesion in the country, to press even harder for unity and working together as South Africans the whole year to celebrate his life, to remember what he stood for, to remember what he said about what type of a democratic South Africa he actually envisioned at the time. And therefore, that's one of the key messages to say, as a country, we fought hard to get our freedom, and it is important that now that we are free, we have a good constitution of democracy, we must strengthen it, we must defend it, we must continue preaching unity and be patriotic as he was. Look at the values of respect, the values of loving our country, being patriotic about our country, to work hard to develop South Africa to prosperity. As you know, he often said this, that we want a democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa. For us to achieve that, we would need to work together in order to achieve that. To us, that has been a very important message of the cohesion of our nation. Key message indeed, so that South Africa does not, in a sense, behave as if we are at war with one another, but rather as a family, as a nation, united in the quest to move forward. Secondly, as you know, the issue of economy is a challenge that has faced us for centuries, and it continues to face us. I think the key question is, what do we do? We have 22 years that we've been in democracy, but people will be telling you that the gap between the poor and the rich is widening. Now, that is not the direction we want to take. We want, in keeping with what I've just said or stood for, we want the country to move forward. We want to get rid of the three challenges that face us: poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And these are critical challenges that if we have not resolved them, we have not resolved the issue of freedom. And therefore, it has become absolutely important as to what is it that we do in order to achieve prosperity. Because when we say we need to reach prosperity, it means there must be no poverty, there must be no inequality, there must be no unemployment. Now, if we are to achieve that, we've got to take very specific decisions. Of course, we realize that we have crafted policies. We were as clear as anything as we were indicating what President Oliver Tambo used to say about our freedom when it comes to the economy. If we're to achieve that, what is that we need to do differently from what we've been doing in the last 20 years? Because we have tried our level best, but it is clear that the challenges continue at the economic level. It is therefore important for us to say, how do we make our policies work effectively? That is the message we're trying to put across. But of course, again, we were saying there is an issue that is important to the nation that has a very serious historic kind of background, the land question. Now, can we sit with the land that is so skewed in terms of who controls it? And therefore, we are saying, let us address the question of the land and ensure that we are able to deal with that question. Now, if we deal with these, just leaving many other issues, we would actually be dealing with the fundamental areas that will help us to change completely. And we believe that it is high time from the ruling party to the government that South Africans must look at this issue in a new way. And we should agree, because what we are saying is absolutely correct. It needs to be done for us to change the quality of lives of our people. Without doing so, we will be struggling all the time and beginning to think that there is a fight among ourselves. And as yet, it would be actually the fact that we have not addressed these particular issues. So we are saying this country can no longer look away from these critical issues. We need to look at them, deal with them, so that we can have a harmonious kind of relationship that we could have in our country. These are few critical issues which we believe strongly that we have got to tackle during this administration.
Okay, so you've unpacked quite a few things there that we can look at in much more detail. But one of the things that you started with, and I think was a theme throughout, is this idea of working together and unity. So yesterday, your speech was delayed by 90 minutes. And I'm just wondering, that disturbance, that disruption before you started, is that symbolic of the state of the nation, where it appears that we're not so together, that perhaps we are quite divided?
Well, Peter, I think the nation has not unpacked that element seriously. That is part of us failing to analyze thoroughly what happens in the country. I doubt that it is a reflection of a national character. I think it is a reflection of a few kind of people, like some parties in Parliament a while ago said that those people only represent 6% of the nation. It's not like an overwhelming feeling. But you could also analyze it by saying, how did this party come about? Was it because it had views and vision about how South Africa should be? I don't think so. We are dealing with people who had quarrels with their colleagues and thought that they needed to fight these people. If, for an example, we are dealing with an organization that was established by young people who were expelled from the ANC, they must be angry with the ANC, and therefore angry with the ANC government. And they must be trying their level best to fight back, but they don't know how. If you were elected by the people in this country to represent them in Parliament, I doubt the voters would say there should be no debate under a democratic society. You should frustrate debate. And yet we are calling ourselves a left, we are calling ourselves a Democrat, we are calling ourselves a person who respects the Constitution, but you fail to appreciate and respect the rights of the citizens of this country to hear a debate about their country. you're frustrated. Now, really, my view is that at times we take very useless things, make them major discussions instead of discussing the real things. The fact that you could make Parliament not to talk and undermine the choice of the majority of this country because you have your own feeling, I think is a misplaced kind of vision. In fact, there is no vision at all. But I think what we are not doing as a country is to discuss that and expose it for what it is in the eyes of the people of the country as well. You know, I've traveled a number of countries. People are wondering what is happening in this country because it is not what they know South Africa to be or South Africans to be. But I don't think we have a remedy. And the remedies are many because somehow we have got some angry minority in the country who thrive on this kind of attitude. I mean, if I was an ordinary citizen, I would have said, these people must be out of Parliament. Because they are changing Parliament from what it is. They are changing the understanding of what democracy is all about. Democracy is not about angry young people. Democracy is about debating things, debating what we need to do for our country. If you don't even respect your colleagues, your everybody, you are not even respecting your own voters for that matter. It means they don't understand why they are in Parliament. So it does not bother me. I was involved in the struggle, fighting very lunatic type of government, which was not what? It's not different. Perhaps it's a kind of,
Okay. Right at the top of your speech, you talked about radical socio-economic transformation. How do you convince our citizens that, Mr. President, we've heard this before, titled slightly differently, but this theme and this story has been reoccurring. What's going to be different now?
Well, there is something that is going to be different. I think we've had, as I said earlier, we've had our policies, which are very clear, very user-friendly, appealing to the understanding of everyone, because we are part of those who say we need peace and stability in this country, we need understanding, we need debate, we need to agree, and we've been trying to be very logical in the history. We have policy conferences that come before our elective conferences. We have our general councils where we review these things. So we are very consistent in looking at policy. And we've been developing our policies. We've been clarifying and crystallizing our policies all the time. No one can say we don't know what the ANC stands for. And therefore, that in 20 years, and you know, at times people say we've got good policies, but we are failing to implement. But you see, you implement because you have got the capacity to do so. Now, if you don't have the capacity, because the greater majority that elect you are not in control of the economy, they have the political power, which we utilize in expressing and enunciating our policies. But when it comes to the question of implementation, you need the capacity to do so. Now, it is clear that we can sit for another 20 years. Now, we are saying, what is it therefore that we need to do in order to move forward? Now, when we talk about radical economic transformation, which must be social economic, we are saying, what is that we can do to interrupt the flow of, as you know, we have got a monopoly capital in this country. Very few people, white, male, who are in control of the key big economic drivers of the country. And if they sit like that and we do nothing, we introduce no policy, no law, we do not tackle that, we are going to remain for a long time without getting into the history of this country, because we have got a very painful history that cannot be compared to any country in the world, which you had institutionalized racism. You were deprived of everything. We were made not to participate. If you were an African, you were black, you were not allowed to do business in particular areas in this country. You were pushed into a corner. So literally excluded by law, by practice, by everything. Now we are saying we can't sit and think that that thing is going to happen on its own because we've got good policies. We are now saying, what can we do? If you take the mines, for an example, there are very few huge companies that deal with mines. That's where the riches of this country are. Now, what do? Do you allow it to move, hoping that one day they will have good hearts and say, okay, let us now share. We've had enough. No, it's not going to be like that. We've got to work out what are the policies that we are going to use to share it. As you know, in the Freedom Charter, we say we shall share in the country's worth. It doesn't mean you take everything from somebody, but you can't have somebody who is super rich and have somebody who's super hungry in one country. And as a government, we have a responsibility, if we're to have the harmony, if we're to have the reconciliation, that we should close the gap, not create a situation where others are going to be poor or that we change this. No, have everybody have something. We've got to open up. We've tried to create policies like black economic empowerment, but there's a lot happening there. Those that are empowered, there are very few who have made it because the situation does not allow that. At the heart of the economy is finance. If the banks, the critical banks that dominate anything are just four, in all countries where the economy has developed, the banks are all over because it is the finances that make the country grow. But if you've got four banks, major ones, and they take everything, they don't want you to do anything. In other words, what makes the economy tick is not in your hands. No matter, you go to the banks, from the majority, they ask you, what is your collateral? What can you present? You don't have, because you have a history. And sorry, I'm told by those who do business, at times they even take your ideas and implement because they've got the money. So there's a skewed kind of economic control. We say we must be part of owning, managing, and be part of controlling the economy. In any country that we have gone into, the majority of the people must participate in these forms. And that's why the economies grow. We actually frustrate our economy deliberately by making only few people control the economy. The majority are workers, are not skilled, etc. We are doing a lot to change South Africa. Some of these things are long-term, like education that we have prioritized, because we believe citizens that are empowered, are skilled, they participate in bigger numbers to grow the economy. But even education itself is a problem, because it is expensive. We are dealing with poor people who can pay education, etc. Only a few could do so. So we wanted to change this. If you have four banks, let us have more banks. Let us share that. There are people here who have studied finance, who know everything. So this is what we are saying. We can no longer say, this mine, this company was there from time immemorial, is monopolizing gold mine, and let it remain there. We are saying, how do we deal with it so that it begins to allow people to come in as we talk about black industrialists? We have said so, but for the fact that we say that, it is because they were not part of the economy. We are saying, let us unpack the economy, let us give opportunities to everyone. That's a different thing that we are going to be doing. We are saying, for an example, whatever you do, there are companies here that you find in every sector, in every level. One company, too big a monopoly. Why, when other people are in trouble, they don't have anything? That's the point we are talking about. We are saying, let us unpack, let us share, let us have systems. We must be part of everything. There mustn't be people who are controlling everything, nothing else. I mean controlling everything, whilst others are having nothing at all. People were not made by God to be workers until they die only because they're black. I think we are saying time has come that we should be able to deal with the economy at a fair level. Women must participate, the youth must participate. If you take South Africa, you take the land question. Basically, a huge percentage of the land is shared by whites. The blacks are put in what used to be called reserves. The space is getting finished there because the population is growing. So you have a situation where people, by law, were not allowed to come to the centers, and they come here and become people who put shacks and everything. That describes the state of the economy. We are now saying as government, let us think clearly, let us say this is what we want to do so that everybody participates. That is what we are saying when we talk about radical socio-economic transformation. It must be radical because where we need to make the law, let us make the law. Where we need to say this must happen in this way, let us do so. I think in 20 years, nobody can say these people, because they're in government, they are angry or they are revenging. Not at all. We are saying, let us share. That's our policy. Let us not have others having the monopoly, others having nothing. And if we don't do it as a country, we are sitting with a time bomb.
Okay. Mr. President, you've mentioned quite a number of things there, and what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start getting questions from our viewers and also from the floor here. Thank you very much indeed.
But I would also love to tell you, I've got my colleagues here, the ministers.
Yes, you can draw on there.
Discussing these matters. Okay. I would want them to participate.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. We'll be right back.
According to the report, some people believe that all healthcare and education will be better for the next generation.
Young people want a good life, should stay in their countries rather than emigrate.
Kenya is the world's leading exporter of black tea, but oversupply and variable weather conditions often lead to global price fluctuations.
Tea factories now need 20 hectares for specialty tea products to be licensed.
The South African cricket team has clinched a 2-0 Test series win over Australia on the 4th day of the second Test in Hobart. Now the Proteas recorded an emphatic victory, winning by an innings and 80 runs with more than a day to spare.
Stay tuned to News Today from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but I want you to tell us, who are these 3 people that you have opened corruption charges against at the Brooklyn police station? How senior are they?
Very.
Are these people who are serving in the political office of the executive mayor?
Yes.
Which means they are no longer working for the city now.
Well, I can tell you that one of them is actually finding themselves employed in another municipality.
You are not going to tell us the names?
No, you're not going to get names from me.
Are people still getting free Wi-Fi in Tshwane?
People are still getting free Wi-Fi, and we will actually make it one of the basic services that our residents will get.
If you're just tuning in, we're in conversation with the President of South Africa, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, and he's talking to us about last night's State of the Nation address, where he spoke about a number of things, but essentially battling those three things that have been challenging us for some time now: inequality, poverty, and unemployment. And he's got a 9-point plan, areas of focus that he shared with the nation yesterday, and he's beginning to unpack some of those issues and set the stage for our conversation, a conversation that you can be very much a part of at Morning Live SABC or hashtag TNA Biz Brief. We're going to start picking up on some of your questions just now. But just to let you know, we also have on the floor somebody that you will recognize very much, because this is her time zone, and that's Leanne Manus. And Leanne's going to be roving around on the floor. We've got a few ministers here who were mentioned specifically in the State of the Nation address. And so I'm going to ask Leanne periodically to go to one of these tables and just speak a little bit more about what was addressed in the State of the Nation. So let's say good morning to Leanne. A very good morning to you. All right. I don't know that they can hear you. Have we got Leanne's microphone live?
Let me try that again.
Yeah, there we go.
Now we can hear. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to Peter. Good morning to Mr. President as well. Good to see you this morning. And to all of the invited guests that are here at this post-SONA breakfast, and, of course, discussing and digesting everything that was mentioned last night. Well, like you said, Peter, we are joined by the majority of the ministers here this morning, so I'm going to try and walk around, find one or two of them, and find it's not going to be difficult, I have to tell you.
There's the Mines Minister there. He was mentioned quite a bit. There's the Minister of Mines there. I think you can start. Yeah, start there.
I'm going to start right here.
Because that's a big area, as the President was saying.
All right.
Minister Zwane?
Let's begin with you, Minister Zwane. No, okay. We're not going to worry. Let's talk about energy, because that's obviously a big thing, something that was mentioned in the State of the Nation last night as well. Let's try and just get your views and your opinions on everything and going forward of what the President is hoping for.
Well, thank you, Leanne. When the President has spoken, ours is too much. You'll remember that we started the Indaba on Monday, and we raised these issues of transformation with the investors. We're happy that our message was received well by the investors that are coming to South Africa. We have already signed more than 5 memorandum of understanding, with the understanding that anybody that invests in South Africa should be prepared to take along the majority of South Africans who were previously disadvantaged. The mining charter that is being reviewed is to be finalized, as I've indicated, will gazette in March. It has all these elements that the Honorable President has raised. We're engaging with all sectors, including the mining chamber and other stakeholders, to understand that the role of talking has been done. The policy issues are being finalized. As you know, that the MPRDA will be finalized this year. Ours is to begin in earnest to apply what we need to apply to change the lives of the South Africans. And as the President has said, we are not going to be reckless on this matter. We understand the importance of the investors getting their money back, but we are also saying if there has to be peace in this country, the people of South Africa, whom are part of these minerals, should also benefit. And I think that message is clear and is well received.
Minister, thank you very much for those comments. Peter?
All right, thank you very much indeed. Mr. President, we're going to start getting questions from the floor, but there was one thing I did want to ask you, and we heard from Minister Lynn Brown a little bit earlier on. When we talk about the state of the nation, part of it is the state of public-owned entities that belong to the people of South Africa. And I just want to get your thoughts. What do you see? Are you happy with the state of our state-owned enterprises?
Well, some of them are performing well, others not that well. I think they've been a subject of discussion within government. There are specific activities that are taking place looking at them. We've established, for an example, special ministerial committees to look at what can we do. There are processes. The very fact that we are doing something about them, it means we realize some of them are not doing very well, and we are doing something to correct that. That's a process we are engaged in. But others are doing well. and one of them, as you'll recall, we had a problem of energy in this country. Almost everyone was saying we are going down. We were able to correct that, which means they do have the capacity. If you pay attention, you can do something. There are turnaround strategies with others that are being worked on. So we believe that much as some are not doing very well, but we have the plans to address that so that we could come. You'll recall that I set up a committee a few years ago, which did a very deep kind of an analysis and research and made very serious recommendations, which we are now implementing. So we believe we are on the right path.
All right. Can I just ask about the SABC, because that's been in the news recently, and I just wonder, were you concerned by some of the evidence that was led by the parliamentary inquiry?
Of course, yes. The fact that SABC has been a subject of discussion, and unfortunately, perhaps, it's not just the SABC as a broadcaster. I think there is something more than that, that attracts attention of people to the SABC. And of course, the SABC has been, in a sense, finding itself into difficulties. At one time, it really was pulling very hard financially. At one time, it succeeded to recover from that one. But precisely because of the work it does, it has to be the subject of discussion. And you need, therefore, a leadership there that must be sensitive to that. Although I thought the issue of parliament proceedings, I thought, in my view, they went very far on a company that is public, that is the face of the country. They could have handled it differently. But of course, that was the best they could. It helped us to understand the challenges and difficulties so that from now on, we will be able to avoid what were mistakes that were done before. I think from the point of view of the country getting to know, I think Parliament managed to satisfy that kind of anxiety, because people are saying, but what's happening in the SABC? For the first time, they were given an opportunity to appreciate that by bringing the players who had been there before. I would imagine that exercise is going to help us to correct fundamentally what was wrong with the SABC.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Let's go to our tables now, starting at table number 8, where we'll find MT, is that Sekhapo? If you could stand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Morning, President and ministers. My question is, Mr. President, first, thank you to you and the Cabinet for stopping ESCOM from shutting down electricities, especially in small towns. And thank you for the temporary reprieve. But there's a fundamental funding problem with small municipalities. Please, Mr. President, speak to National Treasury to improve the equitable share for municipalities, because what's going to happen, people are going to pay ESCOM, small contractors are going to suffer in the next 12 months. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, is that something you want to address, or can we get some assistance from one of your ministers?
No, I had the question. Yeah. I'm sure the ministers will come in. But I think it's important to know that concern.
Yeah.
So that in what we are saying, we are planning, we are looking at how the financing of institutions should be. If we get sensitized by those who are aware, I think it is important. But I think the ministers who deal with this are here. They could say something.
Okay.
Particularly the one.
All right. Let's speak to Minister of Public Enterprises.
Yes.
Or perhaps you can address that, because this is an energy issue, actually, at the end of the day.
All right. Let me walk over to you, Minister. Then Brown, let's give this to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. In fact, that's a very good suggestion, and that the young man made there, because we do have a problem, Mr. President, and that is that some municipalities are quite, they don't have an income. There are no businesses in the municipality. So the only income they have is an income from the community, and very often the communities are quite poor and they are not able to pay. And then, because the equitable share is quite small for some municipalities, they are not able to. So it's just, we've reached agreement with all the municipalities to pay, and there are about 6 municipalities outstanding. And I feel quite strongly that you can't push the municipality to pay if they don't have the money to pay. We've got to find a different, it's a systemic problem, and we've got to find a different solution to it. But it is something we are working on. COCTA, National Treasury, and ourselves in DPE. ESCOM is on board, and so is SALGA. So we are all working on the matter. It's not something that we can change overnight, but are we very conscious of the problem that we have. And the problem you've raised is the problem that I think we add into the pot. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you very much. I think it's also important that we get here with us as well. We've got the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister, Des van Rooyen. So I'm sure you can help on this issue as well.
Thank you very much, Leanne. A very good morning to our audience and His Excellency, Mr. President. Yes, Leanne, confirming what has been said by my colleague, Minister Lynn Brown, some of the municipalities cited do have a financial viability problem. And I can tell this has been a perennial problem. Now, it's clear that after some reviewal of our equitable share, because equitable share has been reviewed on several occasions, we still find some of these municipalities, the 6, more especially municipality called Naledi in the northwest, it's very, very clear that we have to do things differently in that municipality. And I must indicate that equitable share as a provision from a national fiscus is not necessarily meant to cater for electricity. It's also meant to cater for other basic services. So it will be important as to how we pin our hope on equitable share to deal with the debt owed by municipalities to ESCOM. So going forward, we are working collectively in a very collaborative fashion. We have what we term an interministerial task team that is dealing with this particular problem. And we are very optimistic that we might find a lasting solution in this particular matter. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you very much for responding. I hope that answered the question.
I think so.
Peter, if I may, I just want to another question
Yeah.
that I did receive here, and it was from the back of the room, from one of the young ANC members that's sitting there. And I think it's quite vital that we address this issue. And Mr. President, feel free to, again, call in one of your ministers to respond, but to get a word from you would also be nice. Masonto Mswangwa writing in and saying, Wunga, Nyaupe, it just seems that with these addictions, there's no future for the youth, and they don't form a part of the economy. That's talking about the youth of South Africa, and of course the rampant drug use in the communities. President, I know you feel passionate about this. Is there a response that you'd like to give towards the youth and drug use and their involvement in the economy?
Yes, I think we touched on that issue in the statement of the drugs. It's the biggest problem that faces the country. We have been trying to deal with it. You'll recall that we went into El Dorado Park in Johannesburg, where it was really getting out of hand. What is unfortunate is that it has spread throughout the country, and it needs proper attention, all of us working together. I don't know what we can do. As you know, some places it has been there for a long time. It causes havoc in the society. We will do a number of things. As I indicated yesterday, it has been also difficult for poor people to reach the centers, rehabilitation centers. What we have said, we are now establishing them throughout the country so that they should be there assisting people, those who are able to go there. The question is, how do you prevent them coming back to the drugs again? We need to work together, all of us. I had a discussion with a company, foreign company, that has established a particular treatment. It has established itself in Kenya on the drugs issues, and they are very successful. They treat it in a particular way because the company says the kind of treatment that you give, it must address more things than one. And we are saying as government, what can we do, all of us? The Minister of Social Development is responsible partly in terms of establishing these centers. The more the centers, the better for us. But we need all of us to work together really on this one. It's one of the problems that faces the country in a manner that we have never seen. But if the citizens are active, it does make the difference. I think in El Dorado Park, we have made a difference. I've met people that when I went there a few years ago, were in drugs, but now are out of them. They themselves are active, helping other people not to go in or to take out those who are being hooked by this problem. So it needs all of us. We need all of us to take it seriously. It cannot just be the job of the police only. But one of the things that I think the country must address is actually the drug lords, because they are known. I think we should be able to face them and deal with them, because they are the ones who produce this for business. It's a wrong business to do.
All right, at this point, I think let's take a quick commercial break. We've got a big room, lots of questions to get through, and when we come back, we'll continue to explore that, and we still have a few cabinet ministers here who can also help us unpack this speech. We'll be back after this.
R1.4 billion was raised to build the institution. Additional funding came from ordinary South Africans. It's been heartwarming to have seen the project from 2009 when the first sorting happened to see it today being completed. Indeed, this is going to be our benchmark going forward. It's just been incredible.
Jammeh has said in the past that only Allah can remove him from office, and once claimed he would rule the tiny riverside West African nation for 1 billion years.
We are going to win this election.
Even if we avoid a downgrade, we're still hovering very dangerously close to junk, and that'll of course affect markets next year.
Our markets are actually already punishing us for a downgrade that may or may not come.
Woods made a blistering start but eventually slumped to a 1 over par 73 and is 9 shots behind the leader and his compatriot JB Holmes.
You know, I just made some really, if you look at it, some really silly mistakes. Mistakes I don't normally make, but I hadn't played in a while, and you know, unfortunately I made those mistakes. I can clean that up.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
Tuning in, and we're busy having a conversation with the President of South Africa, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, about last night's State of the Nation address, and he's been sharing his thoughts with us about the important and key issues that came through that speech last night. And we're inviting you at home, #TNABizBrief at Morning Live SABC, to join in this conversation. And we've also got an audience here at this venue in Cape Town that will be posing questions to the President as well. Mr. President, just one thing. The 94 people that died in the hospital system in Gauteng. I know you spoke yesterday and you said that you welcomed the Ombudsman's report. I was just wondering if there isn't a larger question, a systemic question that maybe needs to be addressed. You talk about us working together to improve South Africa. This issue got highlighted because there was a loss of life. But where there is no loss of life, perhaps things are going on where government isn't listening to advice, government isn't listening to people who have got comments to share. Are you worried that this might be happening in other parts of government?
Of course, Peter, that incident shocked all of us, particularly the number of people who died. And also the report itself of the Ombudsman, which indicated negligence, which indicated people being told but not responding promptly. That's why we have taken a view with the minister and in government that we want to go through nationally to check what is actually happening, because the report really was revealing. And that's the reason why I said yesterday, we are now looking at some of the powers that are devolved to the provinces in specific sectors, that some of it must come back, like the one that I talked about yesterday, so that we have a full control. Because if the provinces are not able to handle some of very sensitive things like these vulnerable citizens, then that's a problem. We are therefore saying, let us do the investigation nationally, in addition to what the specific report of the Ombudsman is saying. But we would want to check nationally on the health sector. There are other sectors that we're going to be looking at.
Okay, so it's on your radar. Okay, let's go to table number 7, where we'll find Duduzi Moyo. Table number 7.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good morning, Mr. President, the ministers and the protocol observed. My name is Mduduzi Moyo, the CEO of Mpilo Royal College. Mr. President, the SMMEs still suffer from red tapes. So what can we do this year to make the situation better? Because red tapes alone leads to business failure or SMME failure. Most of the business, they start and then very few years they close because they don't get support. They are being blocked, to succeed. So we want to know what can we do this year that can better the situation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so an important question because the SMMEs are the ones that are going to create jobs faster than anybody else.
Yeah.
We've talked about this red tape issue for the SMMEs. Are you going to crack the whip, Minister, Mr. President?
I think we need to. We need to crack the whip. It's a very big challenge. You must know that's a fairly new department. We had to establish it precisely because we saw the need, but also the experience globally that the small businesses are the ones who are able to cover the bigger area in terms of activities. The minister responsible for that currently has been very active, but the red tape issue comes in, as well as resources. I would imagine one of the things we say is SMMEs and cooperatives. I don't think we have made sufficient input on the cooperatives who must then be there as well. The matter is being discussed by us continuously to find a way to deal with it. And I think the minister responsible is very vocal on the matter. She has come to understand some of the challenges which she's reporting back to Cabinet so that Cabinet and government broadly should help out as to how do we handle this, because it is a critical one. I think one of the problems that we are dealing with is that if people have been excluded from economic mainstream, then for them in greater numbers to come in is not an easy matter. So it's a matter that we are dealing with, and I think the minister has plans, and we are ready to support the plans. And I think the kind of issues she has been raising have been received by Cabinet very well. We are now seeing how do we implement what is coming up as the kind of a plan that will help us to address the question of the SMMEs, because they are an important factor to reach our people economically, to involve them. I think as we talk about radical economic transformation, we need to look at the SMMEs as well from that point of view.
Okay. Leonid Bashlikov is on table number 29, I think, or 24, 29. Leonid Bashlikov. Did I say your name correctly?
Oh, the Minister of SMMEs
is Minister here? Okay, do you want to have a chat? I was looking for her earlier, but she's
I was
just
looking for her too.
All right, I spotted her way before you.
So Leonid will come to you just now.
She's writing notes furiously, so I think
Okay,
she's got a great answer for us. Minister, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good morning, and good morning to everybody. I guess, Mr. President, the whip is going to be cracked on me, and I'm ready for that. Yes, we do have a red tape reduction program as a department, but what I would like to say is that this isn't an issue that can only be dealt by the department alone. It is something that has to be dealt with at all three spheres of government, and that's why as a department we are coordinating the red tape reduction program. But it goes beyond that. It's also about the people who are sitting behind the desk, who are supposed to make sure that the turnaround time is quick in supporting small and medium enterprises and cooperatives. And I also think it's a question of education that we need to do, because it's very painful. I mean, I'm experiencing it as a minister almost everywhere I go. People are complaining about the service that they're getting and all that. So this whole issue of red tape reduction is top of our agenda, because we know that the only way we can make sure that SMMEs become the backbone of the economy of South Africa is to make it easy for them to do business. Thank you very much.
Minister, before you sit down, where can they go? Because often what happens is I do a service and it takes an age to get paid. I'm scared to annoy the guy who's given me the business in the first place. I don't want to complain, but I'll go out of business in the meantime. How can we solve that
You
challenge?
have to complain. If you're in business and you don't hold the bull by its horn and you're hiding behind somewhere, you've got to complain. The reason why government has got systems in place that enable citizens to complain is basically so that you can be able to do that. But of course, I do know that the other issue we have is that of corruption, where in order for certain papers to move from one place to the other, people expect certain things. That's why for us in the department, we think that educating ourselves, educating our citizens, but also educating small and medium enterprises of their rights, but also understanding the institutional processes and the institutions they have to go to is very important. They have to complain. They have to take it. If they have to go to the police station, they have to do that. Otherwise, if they don't do that, we'll never be able to deal with the challenges that we have. Small and medium enterprises worldwide and cooperatives are known that if they are given an opportunity, they can become the backbone of the economy of this country.
Okay. All right, we have to take a quick break. We've got lots of those, and then we go to Leonard straight after that.
Failure to implement the water restriction is going to make the system not workable. For the domestic use, everyone should not exceed 25 kiloliters per day.
What is the penalty and how much have you raked in thus far as a municipality?
For domestic users, if they exceed 25 kiloliters, then they're going to be charged a penalty on their monthly bill. And so far, already we've collected 1.7 million.
The 200 million rand state-of-the-art school in Magaliesburg had been vandalized by drug addicts. How bad is it?
It's very bad. Into the hostel residents, it was even worse because there the doors, the wardrobes, the beds, the ceiling were broken down. Showers were ripped off, and it couldn't be used by students who are actually using that particular boarding facility.
According to the report, some people believe that all healthcare and education will be better for the next generation.
Young people want a good life, should stay in their countries rather than emigrate.
Kenya is the world's leading exporter of black tea, but oversupply and variable weather conditions often lead to global price fluctuations.
Tea factories now need 20 hectares for specialty tea products to be licensed.
The South African cricket team has clinched a 2-0 Test series win over Australia on the 4th day of the second Test in Hobart. Now the Proteas recorded an emphatic victory, winning by an innings and 80 runs with more than a day to spare.
Stay tuned to News Today from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
Police found powerful military explosives when they swooped on a house in Springs on the Gauteng.
Some of the weapons seized at this house included rocket-propelled grenades, rifles, and even rounds of ammunition.
All military explosives that we found that you cannot obtain a commission.
The weapons found at the house not only had the potential to cause major damage to property, but they also put many lives at risk.
I could have lost any one of my family members or most of my family members.
Welcome back. We're in Cape Town for the latest in the series of New Age Business Briefings brought to you by the SABC, today sponsored by Transnet. And we continue our conversation with President Jacob Zuma. Just before the break, we tried to go to Leonid Bashlikov, and we got him now. Leonid, what's your question?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's a great honor for us to be here. I will make a small introduction. We are the representative of an educational technology company from Russia, and we are providing an online platform for education in schools. So our questions will be about education. Actually, we are now planning to pilot a project in South Africa, and we want to test our system in some of your schools here. And I just wanted to ask what do you think about it? Is it like in your plan of development of education and some improvement of education, is it like in the same direction as we're going?
Is this to partner with Russian entities? Is that what you mean?
Well, what do you mean, sorry?
You're saying, is it in our plan in South Africa?
Yeah, to develop education, to make online education, to implement internet technologies in schools.
Okay. I think it is.
I want the Minister of Science and Technology to
Minister of Science and Technology is sitting at table number 5. And Leanne's got the microphone. There we go.
Here we go. Minister Nelly Dipando, good morning to you.
Morning, Leanne. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, certainly the introduction of information communication technologies into the education system is part of the plan of government. We've already done extensive introduction of such technology within the Gauteng province in the Western Cape, and we have a number of pilots in the Eastern Cape. So essentially, throughout the country, we now see a proliferation of the use of information communication technology to improve learning and teaching. We have also had introduction of online open courses, or MOOCs, as they're called, within the higher education sector. But I don't think we as yet have a proliferation of such online platforms. But certainly we would welcome international partnerships in that arena, because technology is the way to go, and it also offers a variety of opportunities, particularly to adult learners and to persons who may not easily afford contact institutions. So I'm sure the colleagues in education would be able to offer more information on what form of partnerships are available.
Okay,
Minister. And if the material can be developed in South Africa using tablets and online resources that are based here, we'd be very keen on that partnership, because we're trying to ensure that through international relationships, we build strong local competencies. So certainly welcome to have a conversation with us.
All right. Well, whilst we're here, Leanne, do you want to grab the microphone? And I'm going to ask Minister Siyabonga Twele to stand up, because the other half of this equation, of course, is the technology itself, broadband. And Mr. President also #fees the data must fall. Yesterday. So for this to happen, this online, we've got to get this broadband happening. Leanne?
Here.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is the golden mic. Data must fall.
No, thank you. Maybe just to add to what Minister Pando said, the President launched ICT in Education Pakisa, where the business were also invited to put their inputs on how they can contribute to improve our education through ICT. So there's another platform, I think, through the Department of Education, which we're working with very closely. On the other issue of broadband, of course, we are continuing to, our companies are investing, the state is investing to expand the broadband access. The question is affordability. As we have said, some people have spoken about data must fall because this broadband is still relatively expensive. We have been working for almost a couple of months now with our regulator, ICASA, who's doing a study, and they're supposed to finish that by April this year, to look into this matter of how we can bring the cost of data to be affordable to the majority of citizens. Secondly, as government, we've been working, we started with the metropolitan municipalities, where we've been assisting them with their programs of rolling out free Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi to us is very critical because it means that a child who doesn't have this money to buy data, they can go to a certain spot within their municipality where they can get access to the internet. What has been encouraging, because I think with our study of where we've rolled out this free Wi-Fi, some citizens were scared that our children were going to use this thing for funny things. But our study shows us that more than 80% of the users of this free Wi-Fi, they are looking for two things. It's education content, which is very positive public good. And secondly, they are looking for job opportunities, which is another public good for our citizens. So those are some of the measures we are doing. Of course, on the big broadband rollout, which is quite costly, this year we'll be looking at partnership with private sector in terms of funding the rollout of broadband across South Africa. Thank you very much.
Okay. So good news, Mr. President, your cell phone bill's going to go down after he's finished his work. All right, we have to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue to explore this conversation. Stay with us.
When cell phones get cut off, people say Mdluli was listening. Who are you?
We have to approach Dennis Breitenbach, who was the prosecutor by then.
The DA Parliamentary?
That's correct. The one who was making halabaloo about me.
There are allegations here that you abused the slush fund. What do you say to that?
We don't have slush fund. I don't know about slush fund.
I respect the fact that you cannot talk a lot about the Secret Service and all that. I guess that's the norm internationally.
Yeah.
But how do we know that you, Richard Mdluli, are not abusing the funds of the state? You are counted amongst the president's men. Are you?
That is rubbish.
Also the matter of General Boysen in KZN. He's not speaking very well of you.
No, that one is talking rubbish.
You are perceived to be very powerful, General, and you know, people who don't agree with you seem to pay the price. What is happening with the Parliamentary case?
No, I'm surprised because, as I've said, I'm a person of people.
Britain will leave the EU single market when it exits the European Union. That's the word from Prime Minister Theresa May.
I know there are some voices calling for a punitive deal that punishes Britain and discourages other countries from taking the same path.
She has said leave the single market, then at the same time says she wants to have access to the single market. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go down.
The Security Council received a firm rebuke from Israel's envoy,
who labelled the council's action as inspiration for terror.
Ambassador Danon expressed hopes that the appointment of a new Secretary General would usher in a wind of change towards Israel at the world body, while he boldly declared hope in the new American president.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Broadcasting live from Cape Town, and this, of course, is the post-SONA breakfast, where our guest of honor is President Jacob Zuma, talking to us about some of the issues that he raised in the State of the Nation address and taking it forward this morning. We're also joined by a number of ministers, and of course the questions that you at home are asking, as well as those in the audience, are being posed to the President, and of course, in return, the ministers are also replying. Well, we've got an interesting question, and I think a vital question, particularly here, what's happening in the Cape. We're all around water. We're all in the midst of a drought in South Africa. So let's discuss the issue of water. And I believe that we have a question coming from the table just over there. So I'm going to ask the gentleman to stand up, introduce himself, and ask the question.
Thank you, Leanne. My name is Bisvan Reddy from the President's hometown in KwaZulu-Natal. Mr. President, I want to compliment you and congratulate you on one of the best budget speeches we've ever heard in a very long time. It was excellent, spot on, and aiming to address issues that we've been raising for many, many years. And I think what we should be doing, Mr. President, is having a radical transformation of some of the lunatics in Parliament. Maybe we can sort that out in 2019. But my question, Mr. President, relates to water. The water crisis. The Department of Water and Sanitation must be congratulated for managing the crisis extremely well. But we have aging infrastructure that we've inherited from the previous apartheid regime that's collapsing. And because of that, we have huge water losses. Some municipalities are recording water losses up to 40%. And in order for us to rectify the situation, the department is going to require a lot of money. Perhaps if you or the responsible minister could discuss what we plan to do in the forthcoming budget here in addressing the water crisis. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Well, I'm standing here with the responsible minister. President, I'm not sure if you'd like to respond first, or should I give it directly to the minister? Okay.
Morning, Mr. President, colleagues, fellow South Africans. There's no free breakfast. And thanks for the question. We inherited the water and sanitation infrastructure that was designed not to serve all South Africans. And in our quest to deal with inequality through reliable water supply and dignified sanitation solutions, a study was done to pick up exactly what it would require. We have infrastructure that has aged. We also have challenges of rapid urban migration. And what we have now come to realize, we need over 300 billion rands worth of money to deal with just the aged infrastructure for a period from 1996 up to 2030. What has the South African government done? One of the immediate things that we've started to look at is to make every sphere of government to put the resources aside for operations and maintenance. Secondly, we've also looked at the new designs where we have aged asbestos infrastructure, like in KwaZulu-Natal, eThekwini, Umgeni, together with the University of KZN, have actually identified innovative solutions and better piping that has to be actually put and replacing the aged infrastructure. Our wastewater treatment plants, we have already started working with our municipalities, and I must hasten that in KwaZulu-Natal, in the Northwest, including the latest in Limpopo, we now have a shared provincial water and sanitation master plan. What it has helped to do is to crowd in all the resources, the conditional grants of a municipality, the contribution of a province, as well as what National Department of Water and Sanitation puts. And out of that, we have been able to make a huge difference. What is happening in Polokwane in terms of the Polokwane asbestos removal project, which would be about 3 billion, is part of that particular project. Going into 2017, we have already started working with our SOEs and SOCs, particularly the water boards, to make sure that we go out and get more resources through our binational relationships with Iran. We are now putting up new plants, one in Ekurhuleni, the other one in Richards Bay, to put new alternative pipes that can actually sustain the pressures and the developments in South Africa. We've not only looked at the aged infrastructure, we've also looked at alternative supplies of water. Mr. President, as you have said, that we need to also explore desalination. As we speak now, industry in Richards Bay has partnered again with the Iranians. We now have desalinated water that is now being used to intervene in Richards Bay. We're now taking it to Ilembe and here in Cape Town. The other thing is that we've started to clean also acid mine drainage and use new infrastructure to deal with those issues. Other than the aged infrastructure, new infrastructure has to do with future plans of our country. Very soon the President will pronounce on the progress we have made on Mzimvubu in the Eastern Cape, because part of what we want to do is to develop the rural areas to arrest unplanned urban migration. We will be completing the work here in Glen Williamstown, in Glen Williams, to deal with the upgrading and the raising of the Glen Williams Dam. What it does, it intervenes in the agricultural sector to make sure that we have got sufficient water storage. We must deal with water leaks. Through the President's directive, we have a program where we are now going to skill 15,000 young people. As we speak now, we have 10,040 that have been trained as artisans, plumbers, as well as water ambassadors. The last batch of the 15,000, we will be sending it through next week from KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Mr. President, I'm going to ask you to answer this question, which comes from table 20, where we'll find Mzwanele Mani, table number 20. I know that this is something close to his heart. I've heard this before. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Mr. President, ministers, deputy ministers. Just two comments, Mr. President, and questions quickly. Firstly, we welcome this SONA for us as Progressive Professionals Forum. We really think it was a very transformational SONA. There are just too many good things in it. We're very happy, Mr. President. But we're worried about one or two things. One of the things we're worried about is the issue of the PPFA.
Can you put your microphone closer to your mouth? Yeah, thanks.
One of the things we're still worried about, Mr. President, is the PPFA. The President had announced that this would be repealed, but we're not seeing any action in terms of repealing this thing. Instead, what we see regulations. The regulations as gazetted, Mr. President, at a high level, they make very promising statements about 30% of this and all of that. But the devil is in the detail. And the detail is contained in Section 9, subsection 1, and it's a pity the Minister of Finance is not here. That detail is just a 30%. It says if feasible. So somebody can decide it's not feasible to subcontract. So it just opens a just big loophole.
All right.
And also, just lastly, Peter, and also it creates an impression that it's 30% to be subcontracted to black people. It's not the case. It's 30% to EMEs or QSEs. Now, for you to be an
what are EMEs and QSEs for?
For an EME, it's an exempted micro enterprise.
Yeah.
That means any business with a turnover of about, the threshold has been increased now to about 20 million, I think. So it could be as wide as it comes. You are an EME. So that 30% could also apply to you as an EME, and you can be anybody as an EME. So it's not like the impression created that all of a sudden our black people are going to benefit. It's not necessarily the case. So we're very worried. So we think that the focus on National Treasury should be on repealing this act. Think that these regulations are in fact a delaying tactic from where we sit as Professionals Forum. Lastly, Mr. President, we would also want to ask the government to look into the issue of CIDB. CIDB continues to be an obstruction in terms of ensuring that our people benefit. And then as I sit down, aquaculture, Mr. President, aquaculture, our people get pushed from pillar to post in terms of access opportunities there on the aquaculture. And also just last point, Mr. President, as I sit down.
So nearly. All right, okay, so let's just be very clear. Your biggest issue is the regulations on the triple PFA. That's your biggest concern, right? Okay, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Peter. I would imagine if the colleague has had difficulties with regulations, either in concrete practical experience, and also if they know exactly where are the difficulties. I think what I would appreciate is if there is a very clear question or query that says these are the difficulties of the regulations, so that we can address that. Because the regulations may have a number of elements. So it will be important to say, look, these are the shortcomings. X, Y, Z. Because we would want to make doing business in South Africa easy. But if there are measures that we have taken that are doing the opposite, we would want to know. So I would really say it would be useful if that is not directed to the Treasury, if it could be directed to the President, so that we can then look at it and see what are the difficulties.
Okay.
Of course, in terms of the formulation, if we use if instead of another word, people might have a different reason why they use that word. So again, the query should be perhaps more clarified so that we would know what then we need to fix.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to hear from the CRL Rights Commission. Stay with us for that.
Police found powerful military explosives when they swooped on a house in Springs on the Gauteng.
Some of the weapons seized at this house included rocket-propelled grenades, rifles, and even rounds of ammunition.
All military explosives that we found that you cannot obtain a commission.
The weapons found at the house not only had the potential to cause major damage to property, but they also put many lives at risk.
I could have lost any one of my family members, or most of my family members.
A top 5 rated horse racing event in the world, fashion is a highlight for those in attendance. All decked out in blue and white, the Lomorians Queen Plate is the premier event that kicked off everyone's social calendar.
That it was all part of my master plan to cast John Legend, but deprive him of his normal instrument and give that one to Ryan.
The House of Truth is not just a name. It is a religion. It is a lifestyle. It is a conviction that drives us.
What really excites me is how people have kept it very simple and also played with the theme, and how each person has interpreted it in their own way.
To stay updated with all the current entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
All right, I'm just going to say my quick goodbyes here on Morning Live. Thank you so much. We will see you bright and early on Monday morning. But do stay tuned because Peter will carry on with the discussion with the President of the Republic of South Africa on Channel 404 until 9:30. So if you do have access to Channel 404, there's still an extra 30 minutes coming your way. Let me hand you back to Cape Town where Peter is.
I think she was saying goodbye to everybody. But welcome to you all. If you've just tuned in, you've missed half the conversation with the President, but you still have an opportunity. At Morning Live SABC, #TNABizBrief, we will start taking a look at some of your tweets and some of your questions for the President. But just before that, there's a question from the CRL Rights Commission, and on table number 19, we'll find Mayor Toko Mkwanazi Kaluva.
Thanks, Peter. Morning, President. I would like to say, as the CRL Rights Commission, we're quite enthused by the fact that the issue of albinism and the challenges faced by people with albinism was highlighted in the SONA. However, we're quite worried by the fact that the deaths of initiates who, at this point, stand at 78 for 2016. That is like a maximum of 12 weeks where young men who had their families to look after and their whole future to look after have lost their lives. And as the CRL Rights Commission would like to send our condolences to their families and to say we hope this will not continue like this, but specifically, President, would like to know whether there are specific plans and resources that will be given to these communities to make sure that they can get this thing correct and save the lives of young people who are dying in an unbelievable way. Last year alone, over 100 of them died. And we're saying this has to stop at some point, and the plans have to be firmer, and the monitoring has to be happening, and the resources have to be pumped into those communities in order for them to enjoy their constitutional rights to their culture. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. And so the challenge that she's raising is these initiates that continue to die when they go for their circumcisions. And she's asking, do we have dedicated budget and plans to deal with this? Because it's 78 already this year, 100 last year. How do we stop this? Because this is a conversation we have every year.
Well, I think firstly, this has been done traditionally 100% for many, many years. And I think there has been an intervention by government which involves in the main the health department as well as other departments. The discussion has been going on between the departments as well as the traditional leaders in particular, who are very much involved in it. It's a matter, as you know, that came in a particular way, because you couldn't just come and say, this is what must happen. I think we are making some inroads because there is now a clear willingness, even on the traditional leaders, etc., that we should work together. So it is part of what we decided to do as government, that we could not wait or just look at the kind of young people who die. And it's a matter that has to be handled as well with some care, given the tradition, etc. So there is a plan that the government has introduced. I think, as you know, we've even introduced some instruments that makes it very easy, encouraging people to go more to hospitals rather than the way it is done. So the engagement has become very crucial between us and the traditional leaders in particular, as to how best can we do this. I think we will achieve success at some point, because the rate at which young people die has been alarming.
Right.
And we are saying this cannot be allowed, because they also have rights. And therefore, whatever we do, we must do it properly. That engagement, I think, will produce the final answer.
Mr. President, earlier on you talked about the banks in particular as part of the kinds of monopolies that are existing in the country. And I know that on your desk at the moment is a public protector report that they've given you time to comment on. Without going into that case specifically regarding one of the banks, I'm just wondering, 1994, in the lead up to 1994, you were very much part of negotiations to bring in this new dispensation. And I just wonder, you know, when we look at these apartheid era sins and problems, was there in principle something agreed that things that happened before a certain date, we're going to leave them alone? Or was there always an understanding that you could and may revisit apartheid-era sins?
Well, I don't think there was a blanket decision. I think the understanding was that we need to deal with the situation in our country and find a solution. I think the general feeling was that you couldn't then say on everything what went wrong, let us go for it, etc. Because that would not have helped the principle of reconciliation. That's why we ended up on very serious matters with the TRC, which then said, if at a given time you came out clean and said why this was a case, etc., you would then not be prosecuted, etc. There are other issues. There were issues that were not necessarily on the agenda. For an example, if you talk about the issue of people who might have siphoned money quietly, doing that kind of thing, which could not be justified that it was government that was doing this or whatever. It could have been companies. I think those matters were not necessarily closed. And I wish we did not have such things so that we could be going back to that one. And therefore, people who are citizens, who take up those matters because they come across very specific information, there's nothing that stops them from doing so. And that's why we were also saying, if people know that they did certain things, it's good to come up. As I'm saying, the issues are not the same. There could have been political issues, political crimes. There could be business crimes that were done. I don't think we covered the business to say this, if this was done, then people will not be prosecuted. So it depends on how the laws stand today, if the matter comes up, and the matter must be looked at. If, for an example, as some matters have come, people say, look, there was a wrongdoing here on the coffers of the state, and people say, here is information, this is what we need to do. I think matters need to be looked at and be dealt with according to what had happened at that time, because the issues are not the same. And what actually also motivated people to do so, when issues also which were not necessarily the same. We concentrated on what would have been sponsored by the state to do certain things in the process of a wrong system. I think those were the issues that we paid more attention.
All right, so it'll be on a case-by-case basis, I would imagine. Absolutely. All right, okay. Well, at that point, we're going to have to say goodbye to our SABC2 viewers, but you can carry on watching this. We're going to extend this broadcast on channel 404 on DSTV. But if you're watching on SABC2, you're probably late for work already, so we say goodbye to you. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll take a quick break.
something called, what, threads or something. What is that?
Yes, so people, you know, with a bit of sagging, so you're in your mid-40s, not quite ready for surgery, not entirely happy with the way your jawline looks, it has a bit of a jolly look, so that's where threads come in. So it's a non-surgical procedure.
What causes acne?
Common causes of acne are genetics, can be hormonal as well, so that's why you see it normally in sort of your prepubescent or your pubescent teenagers. There can be social causes as well.
Varicose veins versus spider veins.
Those large, big, tortuous blood vessels that run down your legs, those are varicose veins. They're typically more than 3 to 5 millimeters in size. And then those very thin, fine, thready veins, and they can be a variety of colors, purple, blue, red. So those are the spider veins.
Join Health Talk every Saturday for all your health news.
Welcome back, everybody. If you've just tuned in, you're busy watching the last bit of our conversation with the President. And we have an audience here that's sitting down, that's taking their seats as we continue with our conversation now. Mr. President, towards the end of your speech, you spoke about the international arena, and coming up there was Morocco. But I'd like to start by asking you if our relationship with the United States is going to change, shift with President Donald Trump in charge.
No, we don't think so. We don't think so. We think that our relations will continue. I think observing from a distance, what seemed to be happening is that President Trump is looking at the American interests in the main. And that, in a sense, could affect how you relate to other countries. But there is no signal so far that says he's changing the kind of thing. But he's very clear about the position of the United States as a starting point. I think once we are able to interact and see what else that happens, we'll see how is it dealing with relations with other countries. There hasn't been any indication that there is something that is going to drastically change. And we hope that as a head of state, like all other heads of state, we'll really look at the interests of the country, but that interest of the country depends how you relate to other countries as well. So I'm sure with time we'll get clarity of them. I know that the manner in which he has taken things, it sends people to wonder what is going to happen next. But I think dealing with other countries is another matter. As a head of state, you have to deal with other countries in the protection of the interests of your own country.
Have you been able to make contact with him at all at this stage? Have you had any interaction with him?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. But there is an indication, there has been an indication that he would want to have some link telephonically.
Right.
There's been that indication. Let me wait and see what happens.
Okay.
But he has indicated that.
He's probably going to send you a tweet, though, I'm sure. All right. What about Morocco, Western Sahara? The African Union have readmitted Morocco into the AU. But not all of the African Union countries were happy about that. And what now of the fate of Western Sahara? Because part of the issue that Morocco had was the AU's recognition of Western Sahara.
Yes. Well, as you know, Morocco has been out of the OAU in the first instance for a long time. Took a very firm position that if Africa recognizes Western Sahara, they wouldn't be part of that organization. And I think they've been there. There has been an interaction quietly with a number of countries. And I think it has reached a point where Morocco felt it should come back, even if that issue is not yet resolved. You will, of course, remember that the bulk of the matter now is with the United Nations. They were supposed, for an example, one of the things they were supposed to do was to organize the referendum of the people at where they share borders. That has not happened. The United Nations has indeed delayed this. But once Morocco said, we want to come back to the AU, this is a matter that has made us to discuss. The last summit debated this issue quite seriously, with the number of countries feeling, let Morocco come back. And there were others that were saying, but on what conditions? What therefore is important, as I indicated yesterday, that discussing with Morocco this question, when Morocco is outside of the organization, was quite difficult in a sense. But with Morocco coming back, I think that signals an important kind of interaction, because we're going to now be discussing from a membership point of view. Bear in mind that when the Morocco left, it was the OAU. Now it is AU, with very clear constitutive act that, in a sense, outlines the requirements of member states. And they include, among others, the issue at stake. So I'm hoping that this is going to create an opportunity for a discussion to find a real solution. The AU is very clear that the borders that were colonial borders should be left as they are. And that's a principle, and I don't think the AU will move from that principle. And therefore, the negotiations certainly will have to go on, and one is hoping that the interaction will help us to find a solution. So that is what we took as a positive thing, that our colleague is going to be part of the organization, and therefore the very fact that they've said we are coming back, knowing the kind of conditions, I think that gives hope that perhaps we'll be able to resolve the matter.
Okay, well, let's stay with international relations as I call upon the British High Commissioner in South Africa at table number 19, Her Excellency Dame Judith McGregor. Is Dame McGregor here still? Yeah, get a microphone to you. There we go.
Mr. President, good morning. It's an honor to be here and to have the opportunity to address you. And thank you for a very, very interesting speech at SONA last night. My question was that you made a very positive reference to the importance of the trade with the European Union and with the UK in your speech. And I would like to echo on behalf of my colleagues here that we too would like to very much progress and develop the trade and investment flows in the period ahead. And as I've got the opportunity, I wondered if you had any particular thoughts or areas in your other sort of points of development in South Africa going forward that you think you would welcome particularly our trade and investment in. We heard about education and skills, that's something I think that's important, but your infrastructure plans too, with your particular position on African infrastructure plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So are there any particular areas strongly that South Africa would like to partner with the UK? And we have to say the EU at the moment as well, don't we, Dame?
Well, We are all partners. We've worked together for many years. And as a developing country, certainly there are a number of areas we would want to partner with and work together. And indeed, as you say, with the UK as well as the EU, UK in particular has been a country that has been here for a long time. So there are many, in terms of skills development, in terms of trade itself, and we would also like that the manner in which we handle one another is actually a manner that understands the challenges that we are faced with, where we come from. UK in particular knows these better than many, because we had quite a close relationship. So we are very happy that that is welcomed, because we would want to go into these issues. We have been in the past going through in a broader way in terms of the EU, through the EU relations and our country in particular, and I think we'll continue to do so. And I hope that the position of the UK is not going to be difficult as we move forward, since it has taken a particular position. Those kind of relations we would want to deepen rather than anything.
All right, a number of other issues domestically. The former public protector, Tuluma Donsela, recommended a judicial inquiry into state capture. Oak Bay Investments, I understand, has said that they would fully support this idea. And I'm just wondering, is this something that you're prioritizing this year?
Well, you would, in a sense, push me to debate that issue, which I wouldn't want to, partly because, as you know, quite a number of us have some concern in the manner in which that issue was handled. It's therefore difficult to come in and air some views on the matter. Certainly, if the state capture is a problem, it has to be dealt with holistically. If we have a Judicial Commission of Inquiry, it has to deal with the matters, because, as you know, there are people who complained to the former public protector, but there are people also who have complained openly, and some have complained to me about other people who own some big companies. So it's not the matter you could do in the manner in which, in my view, was done hurriedly. I had an experience with the public protector who did not initially indicate that he was investigating me, who was just reporting to me to say, look, I've got this, I'm doing, and later wanted a meeting to brief me. The meeting changed into now questioning when she was left with few days. So the matter was not rather handled very neatly. So it's a matter that I would not want to go
comment too much.
That much, really.
All right. Well, one area you can comment, because you're the chief executive there, is the ANC, your party. And for the state to be stable, it's very important for the ruling party to be stable. So, you know, people looking might be concerned at some of the things that they see, which they perceive to be infighting. And I don't know whether it's power struggles or what's going on, but I just perhaps give you an opportunity to address this, maybe reassure citizens who are not quite sure what to make of what's going on within your organization, and if in fact it might even affect the running of government.
Well, I would like to assure South Africans that the ANC is an old organization. It has gone through a lot of challenges and difficulties. And I'm sure some people who don't know under what kind of conditions it has gone through before, they will think that, as others say, well, the ANC is now almost dying, etc. I think they don't know the ANC. The ANC has gone through a lot of challenges. The ANC is an open organization. People have a freedom to express their views. We are not a type of an organization where leaders are feared or people can't discuss things. I think what also people don't appreciate is that ANC does not fear discussing some of the issues, as we do, for an example, with our policies. I think we are one organization, I haven't seen any here, who at times, not just at times, who always distribute their discussion documents so that the citizens are aware of what is happening. You know, if you looked at the ANC in 1963, when it was fighting, very difficult, when the entire headquarters was captured at Rivonia, if you were there, you would have said the organization has come to an end, but not the ANC. It came back, it was stronger, it fought, it indeed finally succeeded to liberate the country together with the people of South Africa. So challenges that come as a result of historical developments to us are not new. Even the differing of views within the ANC are not for the first time. But people who are seeing it for the first time, they think this is an end. Not at all. I think ANC has the capacity to emerge out of difficulties. In fact, each difficulty makes the ANC more stronger. If you were there when the ANC changed in a serious debate from a non-violent policy to a policy of armed struggle, the debates were very serious. There are people who disagreed forever at that time, but it never stopped the ANC. You have a situation that at some point some people left the ANC or they were taken out of the ANC. Because of its size, because of its nature, it will come across that. If there were no hard kind of debates within the ANC, it would not be able to live. And as we know, it will finish another 100 years to come, because it is an organization which is different from others. What has happened today that people say there's a problem in the ANC is that as we look at how the country is governed, away from what we were doing as fighting for our liberation, and how we look at things, and how strong the views are. Now, because we are in government, they tend to look like they affect many other people. And we are very much aware of that as we debate our things, we are able to move forward. But we can't stop debating, because we need to be frank about our discussions and deal with the matters the way we want to deal with them. And that at times people misunderstand how open we are in terms of dealing with the matters. There are organizations that you wouldn't know what happens in them, but they've been breaking into pieces as you go. You just see them, either big portions going out, etc. For an example, in our case, some of the organizations that have come out of the ANC, people knew exactly what were the problems. Either individuals had misbehaved, we took actions, and then they start doing their own things, forming organizations. At some point, there was serious disagreements. We handled matters in a particular way, which led to others saying, thank you, let us go away. But that is the way the openness the ANC has been. Fact of the matter is that the center has always held the organization correctly. We deal with government, we deal with the party. And I think we've been handling that, as well as the alliance. I don't think you could say we've reached a point where we did not know what we're doing. And as you must have realized, even if there is debates about issues, but once the ANC come together, once the branches come together, either in the General Council or in a policy conference or in the elective conference, the ANC emerges always as an ANC that is together, that knows where it's going. What has been, I think, important at times that some of these had been personalized. And you can't think, for an example, for a moment, that ANC debated, we differed on policy. We've never. So perhaps it has been the question of the style of work and how other people looked at other things. But at the end, the ANC knows where it is going. The ANC knows it needs to be united. The ANC, once it comes together, it is able to pick itself up and move forward.
Okay. Another issue that keeps me, I do what the movement asks, step aside. What I'm going to ask you is, have you ever thought about it? Even though the organization hasn't asked you, have you ever thought about it? Have you ever thought, you know what, I've done nothing wrong, but maybe for peace sake, I should step aside?
For peace sake, with who? No, I'm asking the question because what has happened? If you recall, the first president of the ANC who became the president of the Republic was President Mandela. He was attacked by opposition, by forces opposed to the ANC. In fact, if you remember, one time he called the opposition parties Mickey Mouse parties. He was angry. They've never stopped. Then came President Thabo Mbeki. I think he was attacked viciously by the opposition, by the media. Then Mbeki left, Zuma came. He's still in the process of being attacked because he's the leader of the ANC. I think if you fail to appreciate that the ANC is a big organization and the opposition would want to reduce it, not just opposition here, even people, some forces globally. As long as you are a leader of the ANC, I can tell you, I'm still very young, we are still very young. Very soon, in a matter of less than 3 years, I will be out. There will be a president here. That president will be attacked. Because it is not the individual, it is not the personality. Just look how the opposition and everybody love Mandela today. They actually think he was an angel. But when he was the president, he was attacked. Because he was a leader of the ANC. If you think about Thabo Mbeki, the opposition, the media, they've almost forgotten about him. Nothing is said even on a single day. Even on matters they used to oppose him. The trick is, because the ANC is a big organization, it has correct policies, you can't tackle it anyhow. So if you want to kill a snake, hit the head. That's what is happening.
Okay.
So if you happen to be a Mandela, a Mbeki, a Zuma, you are in the head, that's where they hit. I'm a very kind fellow. I don't fight them. Why will people fight Zuma real? I'm not even fighting here. I'm staying at Nkandla, far away from anyone. What is an issue? So I'm just saying, people misread the fact that the ANC has a lot of opposition because people will want to destroy it. It's difficult to destroy the ANC. That is an issue.
But there are some within the ANC that have formed these movements that are saying we must ask this president to step aside. What do we say to those?
No, even that one. It's not a new matter. There is hardly, perhaps it could have been few. Perhaps Lutuli, Tambo, even Tambo faced serious problems. People within the ANC would not have a view about the president within the ANC because of its nature. The very first president, John Dube, did not even do 2 terms. Even the people he worked with to establish the ANC turned against him. You talk about Seme, one of the greatest intellectuals of the ANC, also was criticized by Gumede seriously. So it's part of the life of the ANC. That is why if there is a discussion in the ANC, people raise their views. It's not an issue. You engage the views. That is our culture. That's what we do. Not that people don't have views about others, even within the ANC. The ANC is a broad church. It had different kind of people with different ideas, but there is something that puts us together. It's wanting this country to move forward in a particular way. Whether you are a communist, whether you are a Christian, whether you are a capitalist, or whatever, there is something in the ANC that you need to understand, that whatever views you have, there is a broader kind of approach that takes the country forward. As long as that is not interfered with, you can, as an individual, have a view this time and then that time. ANC will bring you back to the mainstream and will move forward. And that's how we operate.
Okay. All right, so in many ways, you're starting to count down now towards the end of your second term and your final term. And at this stage, this is where a lot of presidents take stock about what we've done, what I'm hoping that I'm going to leave behind as a legacy. And I know you always talk about it's the movement, it's not me, but there must have been something at the beginning of this journey of yours that you said, by the end, I want to have achieved this, and this is what I would like to be proud of the most. What is that thing that perhaps will be President Jacob Zuma's legacy?
Well, I'm not working for my legacy.
Yeah.
That thing must be very clear, firstly. I'm working for the ANC, for the legacy of the ANC. Ever since in my young age, when I joined the ANC, I knew exactly what I was doing. And I have contributed as much as I could. I don't take stock. What is it that I've contributed now? All I say, am I still within the parameters that the ANC sets for all of us? Am I still making the contribution for the ANC? Because through the ANC, you are making a contribution to the country. How that is done is a matter that the ANC will look at, not me. I've never on one day stopped and said, what is going to be my legacy? That's not what I work for. What is going to be the ANC's legacy? That is what I work on all the time, that the ANC must succeed, not me. I'm just part of the cadre that must make the ANC good and the country good. That's what I look at.
All right. We're starting to wrap things up now, and I guess some people might be wanting to know, how's your golf going?
My golf?
Yes, I believe
very poor. Very poor. I'm now feeling very, very uneasy because I'm going to tee off.
Yes.
I don't know what to do there because I haven't had time to go to the golf course.
Yeah.
But I always say, well, as long as I hit it up there, fine.
Somewhere along the line, you'll find the hole.
Well, perhaps when I leave, I will have time to play golf because I've appreciated it's a very good game, and I think it needs a practice. I just do it because it's a task. I'm going to try to hit it. At times it goes this way, at times it goes down. I don't know what to do. So I hope today I'll be lucky.
But the walk is the good exercise, though, isn't it?
Walk, of course, is the best.
Yeah.
That's why when I'm pensioned, when I'm at home, I will work on it a great deal because it's very good to walk and stretch your muscles.
All right, Mr. President, we run out of time, but perhaps just a final thought. South Africans heard your message yesterday, and they probably just need a final kind of inspiration from you. What would you want them to think about the most as they start their day?
Well, as I said from the beginning, firstly, as a country, we need to go to the values that one of our greatest leaders believed in and worked for. He's one of the architects of our democracy, as well as the wish that South Africa should reach a stage of prosperity. And we can only do so if we work together, if there's cohesion, if as a country we love our country, we do everything to promote our country. That is absolutely crucial for all South Africans to say, what can I do for my country so that my country at the end reaches prosperity? Secondly, the economy in every part of the world is critical for the life and the development of people. What we should all say, in the stage in which we are, radical socio-economic transformation, what we could do as business, as workers, as the civil society, to make sure that we are able to mix the elements correctly for economic development. We must not be greedy to take all. We must share. We must work on that one so that the life of the South African people changes. Even the poorest of the poor becomes better. We must defeat the three challenges. That is what we must do. We can only do so if we are together and if we share in the economy of the country.
Mr. President, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma. And that's where we say goodbye to our viewers. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's been great having this conversation, and thanks for your contributions as well. The newsroom is up next with Evan Jansen. From us, goodbye.
Very good morning to you. It feels a bit like, well, the morning after the night.